I started live streaming and I began learning about how all this works. In fact, I felt like I was a competent speaker, yet I wasn't a competent live streamer. So as I've gone along on this journey, I'm learning a little bit about how to be effective hopping into this space and interacting and even building out some of the software systems that I'll explain in this video. And we'll get into a little bit of it all. If you have any questions for me about anything and everything, feel free to put those into the chat as we go along. I'll be monitoring that as we go, and we'll be going along with a few lessons I'm learning in the live streaming space. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So one of the things you'll see immediately is a little bit of the camera switching. So this is going to be kind of a two-part point. If you think about camera switching from a perspective of so I'm here, and then I'll be able to, with a push of a button, move to my left camera over here. And I don't have any fancy cameras right now. I might update as I go along, but I have pretty standard webcams set up in my little studio section. But I have the ability to press one button and it flips over to another camera. And I'm going to explain this in the next point, but I knew so little about this device. It's called a Stream Deck. But really what I've done is I have three different buttons that if I press one, you'll see it goes to a different camera angle. And if I press the next one, it's going to go to the left camera angle. And you press that right button, it goes to the right camera angle. So again, this is just it's a device that I added to the mix. Before I was using this, I was just using a keyboard. The program OBS does allow you to program your keys on your keyboard. I was using this for a time period, using the keys on my keyboard. But then with time, I upgraded to the Stream Deck that allows me to switch the camera angles like this on the press of a button. So camera switching was big. In fact, I was also curious if I was able to switch cameras without having to manually press the buttons like I just showed you. And Stream Deck also provided a solution as well. So check this out. So I'm going to press one button on the Stream Deck. So if you can see this button right here, this button is what it's going to begin doing is automatically switching the cameras every 5 seconds. So check this out. So notice I'm not pressing anything with my hands. I'm just here. In about 5 seconds, it should be going to the next. There we go. And I'm just, again, here. You could see me with my hands. Nobody's in the studio with me, by myself. Goes to the next camera. And so what this software and hardware allows me to do is press one button. And what you do is you build out the software component. And maybe I could show you what that looks like if you give me a second here. If I'm going to show you what the software looks like. So if you're ever thinking about getting into the streaming space, you have some ideas of what is even possible. For me, again, I'd watched a bunch of videos on streaming, and there are certain things that I saw other people do, and I kind of just try to create my own, what felt comfortable and natural, and the kind of experience I thought I would want to deliver to the people who are tuning in. Again, if you are tuning in, we're going over a few lessons I've learned from live streaming. If you have any questions about me, my career, my faith, what we're doing here, feel free to ask the question in the chat. What I'm doing here is I'm gonna share my screen with you. Hopefully you're able to see this. Okay, there we go. All right, so. This is another little trick that I learned along the way that I've added to the mix. So here you're able to see the Stream Deck setup. So this is the software component to the hardware, and it just matches. So if you think about this button up here, you can see me. No, you can't see me circling it. But there's a top red button that has these three cameras. If you really focus in there, you could see it. It's the button from the very top right. So what I did is I programmed that it's a press the button to switch the camera, and then to wait 5 seconds and then press the other button. It's just a small way of creating some engaging interactions from a camera perspective. So again, what it allowed me to do is just press one button and then that button, this automatically switches the camera angle. Keep it a little bit dynamic. One thing I've learned in streaming and with camera angles, it's made me start paying attention to movies and shows when I'm watching it to kind of even gauge how much they switch, how fast they can switch camera angles, whether that's 3 seconds, 10 seconds, or sometimes I remember, I think it was, what was that show on Netflix with is the blind character, he's playing a Marvel hero, spacing on the name, but they would do extra long shots. It'd be like, I think they call them one shots, when they would just show one long strip instead of doing a bunch of cuts. It was like one long scene. Anyway, all of that to say, I like the idea of switching camera angles. You see that on the news. You see that even with sports shows. You see them switching different angles as they go along. So I can do that manually as I'm doing now, just pressing the button, or I can switch it up and press the other button where it goes automatically switching every 5 seconds. All right, so that's the first thing is I'm learning from a live stream perspective, learning how to use different camera angles just to make it more dynamic. Sometimes our attention span, it can be so tiny and so minor. So sometimes if we're able to have some change, again, we could maybe call it a dynamic presentation, it can grab our attention and kind of hold us on for the ride. So number one was the camera switching. And number two is actually it's slides coming up like that. Okay, so what I did to make this happen is so I have a few screens. So I have 3 different monitors that are up right now. And if you were in the studio, you'd be able to see the laptop that's in front of me, and then I have the 2 screens that are above the laptop. And to bring the screen up like this, or to make a point, is I have on one screen, it's completely black. It's ultimately it's the slide you see before you. But what I did is I just made it about it's called opacity. You just make it like a little bit transparent, so you can still see me in the back, but the point will come up before me. So it's called it's like you switch the scenes inside of OBS. I feel like I'm using technical language. You switch the scenes inside of OBS, but you're able to see the main point that I'm getting at the time. So let me see if I can explain this. So let's see if you were just watching that screen by itself. I'll pull that up once again. So you see how I'm here positioned, and I'll just move myself around here. So really that my left screen is just showing the title slide. And then I just put myself here over the screen so you can see what that is. But what OBS, again, it's a free tool that anybody can use. You can use OBS to make this one source. You can make it really transparent, which is what I do with when that slide comes in for the main point. So little complicated. Again, if you want to know more about that, let me know in a comment, and I will make a video to try to slow that down so you could see how that might work if you ever want to do something similar on your stream. All right. Number 3, let's get into point number 3 is the Stream Deck, which I kind of already touched into it, but I'll bring it up anyway. The Stream Deck, this just gives you the opportunity to press different buttons to trigger different actions on the stream. So if I wanted, so I'll give you a few examples. Let's say you and I are in a conversation and we're streaming, and let's say you have a question about my faith, and you want to know, hey, well, what motivates you in what's helped you, whatever, have meaningful connections. Like you seems like you have meaningful connections. What's helped with that? And I was like, okay, well, let me give you a scripture that's really helped me to think through that concept. So I have inside the Stream Deck, one button I press, and what it's supposed to do is pull up a screen and then put me in this little circle here. And then now I have the Bible behind me. So let's say I'm going to go through a passage. So now I could scroll through the books of the Bible on my left. And let's say I'm like, all right, let me give you this passage from Ephesians. And we go to Ephesians chapter 4. And one of the passages that just really helps with, human interaction is do not let any wholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen, right? It's super helpful, super beneficial. That filter, that divine filter you put on your speech. But think about that. But this is under just the point of, if I wanted to just go into a scripture, I can just press this button. It will pop up on the screen. You can see it. I can see it. We can see it. So if you have questions about what this looks like, this is one of the Bible apps I have on my Mac. And then if I want to move out those screens and bring me back up, I just press another button on the Stream Deck. The thing about the Stream Deck is that it comes clear. So ultimately you have to choose what buttons you want, where you want them. There's 32 different buttons. And then you choose what actions you want them to trigger when you press the button. So I just showed you, again, the Bible button on the Stream Deck. If you wanted to see the Kindle button on the Stream Deck, let's say I wanted to share with you a quote from one of the books that I'm reading. So that the next button I'll press is that Kindle button. And what it'll do is pull up Kindle, and then it'll pull up the text right next to it. So let's say, what book are we in right here? So I'll pull up, let's say I wanted to share from Think and Grow Rich. Or, Atomic Habits is good. So let's say we're in a conversation and let's say we're discussing the idea of, are people born? That debate between that nature versus nurture. If I wanted to get into that, I would go over here and I would type maybe from this book the word chess, because it reminds me of this one section of the book. And I'm going here. So let's say I wanted to read you this section of chapter 9 of Atomic Habits. And what he gets into, and this is something I even read to my mom on my birthday a couple of weeks back, is we'll even go through it together right now. So let's say I just wanted to go through this part of this book with you. So what I try to do, if at all possible, and I know this is something not everyone can do, but if you can, it does make a big difference, especially if you're reading a lot and you find yourself quoting or referring to what you've read to the people around you. I figured every book that I get, that I buy or I'm listening to, I try to get it, the physical copy, the digital copy, so I can have it on Kindle, and then also the Audible so I can listen to it when I'm able to. So here is, again, the section, if we were in Atomic Habits and we were having discussions about this book, if I was reading chapter, I think this is 9, we said, in 1965, a Hungarian man named Laszlo Polgar wrote a series of strange letters to a woman named Clara. Laszlo was a firm believer in hard work. In fact, it was all he believed in. He completely rejected the idea of innate talent. He claimed that with deliberate practice and the development of good habits, a child could become a genius in any field. His mantra was, a genius is not born, but is educated and trained. Laszlo believed in this idea so strongly that he wanted to test it with his own children. And he was writing to Clara because he needed a wife willing to jump on board. Clara was a teacher, and although she may not have been as adamant as Laszlo, she also believed that with proper instruction, anyone could advance in their skills. Laszlo decided chess would be a suitable field for the experiment, and he laid out a plan to raise his children to become chess prodigies. The kids would be homeschooled, a rarity in Hungary at the time. The house would be filled with chess books and pictures of famous chess players. The children would play against each other constantly and compete in the best tournaments they could find. The family would keep a meticulous filing system of the tournament history of every competitor the children faced. Their lives would be dedicated to chess. Laszlo successfully courted Clara, and within a few years, the Polgars were parents to 3 young girls, Susan, Sophia, and Judith. Susan, the oldest, began playing chess when she was 4 years old. Within 6 months, she was defeating adults. Sophia, the middle child, did even better. By 14, she was a world champion, and a few years later, she became a grand master. Judith, the youngest, was the best of all. By age 5, she could beat her father. At 12, she was the youngest player ever, listed among the top 100 chess players in the world. At 12, that's crazy. At 15 years and 4 months old, she became the youngest grandmaster of all time, younger than Bobby Fischer, the previous record holder. For 27 years, she was the #1 ranked female chess player in the world. The childhood of the Polgar sisters was atypical, to say the least. And yet, If you ask them about it, they claim their lifestyle was attractive, even enjoyable. In interviews, the sisters talk about their childhood as entertaining rather than grueling. They loved playing chess. They couldn't get enough of it. Once Laszlo reportedly found Sophia playing chess in the bathroom in the middle of the night, encouraging her to go back to sleep. He said, "Sophia, leave the pieces alone." To which she replied, "Daddy, they won't leave me alone." The Pogar sisters grew up in a culture that prioritized chess above all else, praised them for it, rewarded them for it. In their world, an obsession with chess was normal. And as we are about to see, whatever habits are normal in your culture are among the most attractive behaviors you'll find. Boom. So let's say I just wanted to share that story with the power of instruction, education, training, and even of your family dynamic. Like what is your family helping you or hurting you in regard to moving you toward the habits that you want? So then I would be able to easily, with the help of the Stream Deck, just press one button and we'll be digging into the Kindle where you can see it on screen. And really what you're going to see with this is most of what I try to do is create this so it's as seamless and easy as possible to pull up content. Like there's many of you know, if you know speakers or you see preachers, sometimes there's so much work that goes into preparing slides and bringing over the quotes and bringing over stories and doing and all of these things that happen. What I would like to do with streaming is to not do as much of the preparation and be able to just have access to books I might want to quote, the Bible. I could just go over and show you the passage, as opposed to having it all prepackaged ahead of time. So again, a little bit of different styles, as opposed to doing a lot of prepackaged or pre-preparation. Do the preparation as far as thinking through the outline of what I want to talk about, but spend significant time just on the stream, as opposed to doing a bunch of preparation ahead of time. So as we, let me see here. So that's the Stream Deck. Again, there's so many different options within the Stream Deck. You can have one of your buttons open up another 32 different buttons. So there's really, I think, literally unlimited options that you can use when it comes to buttons with your Stream Deck that you could pull up to have them trigger different things. Even if I wasn't getting into streaming and I just wanted to be more effective and efficient with how I operate with my computer, or if I'm pulling up documents or I'm typing or whatever I'm doing, the Stream Deck is one of those valuable pieces that I didn't even know about, but I wish I would have known about this 10, 15 years ago, or whenever it came out. I wish I would have known about it then, because it speeds up so many activities, especially if you find yourself doing the same activities or pulling up the same programs or typing the same types of emails or messages. Then Stream Deck allows you to even pre-program some of that text inside of it. So you can press one button and it types the paragraph for you automatically, or it just pastes it, or if you put the information inside of it, it'll already know what information to pull up. So Stream Deck, I think that's a game changer if you're looking for productivity and efficiency. All right, let's get into our next point, which is about drawing on screen. I've used this sometimes, but it's just another piece of being a teacher. I want to be versatile. I want to have that versatility to sometimes be speaking, sometimes pull up Kindle and be reading, sometimes pull up the scriptures to be pulling from that source, and other times to be able to even maybe draw an illustration so that, you know, we all, you can see that and to have a different learning component where it's more of an image to learn from, as opposed to learning from just words spoken or just words on the screen. So let me give you an example of writing on the screen, and then I'll explain a little bit of how this works. So one of the illustrations that people use in the speaking or even coaching world is, I think so somebody told me this was from the book, The Obstacle is the Way, but let's go ahead and see if I can illustrate this. All right, here we go. Actually, let me do that one more time. Okay. So let's see here. Let's pretend you are here. All right, that's you. And if we were illustrating this concept with the obstacle is the way, let's say there's a big old boulder in the way. You can see him, not much of a drawer. But let's say let's say you had the goal of moving forward up, but you couldn't climb it and you also couldn't go around it. And you felt like, okay, should you just go back or what should you do? Right. So you had this question mark of what you should do. And let's say, if you realize that maybe the obstacle is the way, maybe the obstacle just needed to be moved. Maybe it was light enough for you to be able to move it forward. And if this obstacle moved here, so then it was a little bit like this, then you would be able to walk over, right? I think the concept is something like that. The obstacle is the way. So anyway, poor drawing, but the point is, with this functionality, it allows me to be able to maybe use a different type of illustration that I wouldn't be able to just use with my hands, or even maybe that's with what's in the Kindle book, or even what's in the Bible, to be able to do a little bit of drawing on screen. So here's how I do this one. I use the Stream Deck because I've already programmed the Stream Deck to know to pull up the program Photoshop, which is the program I'm using to draw on. There's free ones online as well, but some of those have a little bit more of a lag. Photoshop has the least amount of lag, at least that I've found, and it also works well when I'm using it with the app XP Pen. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how this works. So let me once again pull up the screen so you all can just see simply the screen I'm working with on this stream. So if I was going to show you this. Okay, so this is the Photoshop screen. So if I was messing with Photoshop, I could just move me around here and you could just see, hey, I'm actually just drawing on this app. And what I'm using to draw is this little board. This little board connects right to the computer, and then I can just take this pen, and this pen works with this board for me to be able to draw. So the good thing about the software that comes with this board, I think this board, the software that comes with is it knows only to use that one screen, and it's only in the parameters of that one window. So anyway, so when I pull up the pen, as you'll see over here, when I pull up the pen and I start drawing, you'll be able to see different things happening on screen. You see that? And I could press the Command C to undo that, or I could undo a lot of these things that we just did. All right. So this is very similar to the slides that I mentioned earlier. The big thing we're doing is taking inside of the broadcast software, which is what I'm using to stream this, inside of OBS, you can screen share one of the screen. If you have multiple screens, I could say, hey, OBS, we're here, but I want you to show the screen from that monitor. And then so it's going to show that screen from that monitor. Again, I just showed you guys that with this. So this is an example. So now this is simply displaying what's on my monitor, and it has me also with a circle little image here. But what OBS does is it brings it forward, and I press the wrong button there. That's the Bible button. We'll pull up Photoshop. So there we go. So now you're making it transparent so that whatever is on the screen, now it's whatever, I think like 80% opacity is the fancy phrase for it. This makes it transparent so that if I draw on the black with the white, you can see that coming out really, very well on your side. Again, it's just one illustration tool, which as a communicator, I always want to find unique ways to connect, explain, illustrate. It's something that I think goes a long way. Many times people forget even the teachings, but many times they also remember for whatever reason the illustration that was used to bring the teaching forward. All right, let's see what we have next on deck. Again, if you have questions about that functionality, being able to draw on screen, let me know. We could create a slowed down video on just that. Or you could go YouTube it. Some of these things you can think are very, very easy to YouTube if you have the patience to go through each video and see how somebody else does it. The next point that we'll dig into is the second laptop to stream. I did not think this was that important when I started. I was like, oh, okay, big deal. Second computer. I had an extra computer, yet I didn't know how important it was until I started using my main computer to do just a few simple things. But there was a lot of strain that the computer would do when I have the program on this one main computer, and then I'll be pulling up the Photoshop, I'll be pulling up the Bible app, I'll be pulling up Kindle, or I'll be pulling up even a website, and then it'll be difficult for the computer to do all of that and send this over to the internet. So when I was reading about and learning about streaming, one of the things that streamers do is have a secondary computer that sends it to the internet, and then your other computer is doing everything else. So currently the computer that's in front of me, like right in front of me, that is doing all of the work of it's pulling up the Photoshop, pulling up the Bible, like pulling up Kindle. It's doing the transitions. It's the one that's moving it around like this. This is doing a lot of what would be called like the downloading. And then my secondary computer is just doing the upstream. So then have a few more devices that help that to happen. It's a video card is what it's called. So the video card, ultimately in my setup, I have a secondary monitor that sends this to the computer, and this computer sends it to the internet. Anyway, using that has put a lot less strain on my primary computer. So let's say if I was going to do my outro video, so if you've been rocking with me, you've seen me do this video. So maybe you've seen this one already. So, and if I wanted to, put music on that. So even when I would do that simple outro video, what would happen is that I would do that video and it would put so much strain on the main computer, and then it would start chopping it up. So even on my birthday stream, when I interviewed my mom, I tried to have that as like an intro video for us to go into the stream. Yet the computer, if you looked at that video, it was choppy in the beginning because there was too much strain on the computer for it to, again, effectively stream to the internet while pulling up that video and doing. So anyway, the computer was in other words, it was too stressed out to effectively send that to the internet. So now I've learned, all right, the secondary computer could send it to the internet. The main computer can do everything else. So sounds basic or sounds complicated, but until you start seeing the challenges one computer can have with doing everything you want it to do, then you go, okay, the second computer makes sense to be able to send it to the internet. This one does the work. This one sends it up. All right. We are getting into it. So I didn't make a slide for this point, but I'll go ahead and get into it now, which is the Rodecaster Pro. Went ahead and invested in another piece of equipment for the studio, which was the Rodecaster Pro. I think it's the part 2. And what that does is it adds a little bit of color to the stream from an audio perspective. So if, I was in a coaching session last week with the leadership team, and let's say if we're in a coaching session, or I'm in an interaction, I'm interviewing, or we're even reacting to a video, being able to have a little bit of sound effects that maybe there's something shocking that's shared, and then you want to go. So it has a little bit of that sound effect. Or if something's deep, it's a deep thing that happens, and you want to hit that that deep bass drop or whatever, that deeper sound in the background. just to add a little flavor to the audio mix. Or if you want to slow down and rewind somebody as they're speaking because you want them to hit that point again, you get that rewind and then have them say it again. The other one is if somebody says something, you know, again, also that's again sort of spicy or it has some fire on it. Get that fireball going. Anyway, so that's one of the other things I'm learning to use is some of the audio just to add a little some extra flavor to the mix. All right, let's look at the next point, which is call to actions. And my audio was messing up a little bit with this and before I started the stream, so we won't be able to see a lot of it, but you'll take a look at it. So CDA's on a button press. So if you will be able to see this is if I'm like ending the video and I'm going, all right, I want to mention, you know, the Patreon page, and I'll try to press that button to see if it works. Maybe it's not working. Maybe not. Let's see if the YouTube works. So the YouTube was able to pull up the call to action. Again, that's simply after creating that video that pops up, all it is pressing one button and it pulls up the little shout out for the YouTube page. I didn't know some things were this simple once you have some of that created. Creating that, again, it took time, which using a template that somebody else made, and they have it in another subscription system. I also had the Patreon that was supposed to pull. Let's see if I can pull it up manually. Okay, there it goes. So yeah, partner on Patreon is another way to do the CTAs just from a touch of a button. All right, y'all. And the last 2 points, I think I've already covered them. So it was kind of the Bible stuff, the Kindle stuff, and covered the sound. And I think that's the big stuff I want to share today about what I'm learning on stream. And if you want to have questions about some of those things, or if you know of some tips or tricks that you think will be beneficial for me, please send that my way. We'd love to continue to learn. But with that said, I'm going to go ahead and call it a night, and I'm going to really aim for that 9 to 11 slot to jump online. I know some of you already know with my wife's fatigue that, you know, she's out typically very early. And so 9 to 11 might be that perfect slot for me to be able to jump online and hop into a stream and one, create content, but two, just add value and build community here online. But with that said, we'll call it a night. You all have a great one, and we'll see you on tomorrow's video. Peace.